When a top Pentagon nominee is accused of leaking sensitive military details on an unsecure app during live operations, while U.S. troops are in harm's way, that's not just reckless. It's dangerous. And when that same nominee is grilled in front of Congress and can't give a straight answer about accountability, that's when the alarm bells start blaring. Senator Peters didn't hold back, and what he exposed could shake the foundations of military leadership. Because this isn't just about politics. It's about trust, responsibility, and the lives on the line. Right now, the world's a powder keg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hegseth, welcome to this committee.
Thank you.
You know, we have far too much partisanship in our country right now. I think it's eating away at the fabric of what has always made this country great, about bringing people together from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of experiences, and we know that in our motto, together as one, we are strong. And so we in this committee, and certainly I speak for myself, but I think I speak for many of my colleagues, want to take partisanship out of this proceeding as much as we can. I'm not naive. It's out there. I get it. But we've got to try to take that out. And I want you to know that as a member of this committee, I have voted in a bipartisan way for secretaries of defense. I voted for 2 secretaries of defense when Donald Trump was previously president. We had those 2. We had, I think, 5 total secretaries of defense during that 4-year period. So we want to keep that in mind as to what we might see in this coming administration. But I voted, and we voted by a big margin for those folks as well. But part of that was the process and having an opportunity to get to know the person and understand their qualifications and understand the standards. You know, I made repeated requests to meet with you prior to this meeting. I know many of my other colleagues also wanted to meet with you. I did that with the other nominees that I was happy to vote for. I thought they were highly qualified individuals and true professionals. And yet I could never get a meeting with you. Was there a reason you were afraid to have one-on-one meetings with some of my colleagues before the hearing?
Senator, I know there was a great deal of outreach to multiple offices. Schedules get full. There's a lot going on.
I was ready.
And I welcome the opportunity, pending my
ready.
schedule, to have an opportunity to sit down.
I was ready. It would have been so much better to have that opportunity to talk beforehand. I think that's a big mistake, and it doesn't set us on a good course when you refuse to meet with people and have a professional conversation about the huge challenges that we face at the Department of Defense. My colleagues, the folks who introduced you and others, the chairman has mentioned about the management of the DoD is a concern, cost overruns, delays on weapon systems. We need strong management at the Department of Defense, first and foremost. We've got to have someone who's going to grab the reins and give the taxpayers value for having the most lethal fighting force in the world that defends freedoms, but we've got to do it in an efficient way. I've heard about the jobs you've had in the past. Let's just talk about qualifications. I know you had 2 previous positions. How many people reported to you in those positions?
Senator, at Vets for Freedom, we were a small upstart. Our focus was
just the number,
working
please.
on Capitol Hill, going back to the battlefield
Just
to
the
support
number.
warfighters.
Just the number, please.
We probably had 8 to 10 full-time staff and lots of volunteers.
So you had 8. Has there been any other? We've heard about the 2, and certainly there's been a lot of talk about the mismanagement, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just curious. I won't go into that. Just curious. So you had 8 there. What's the largest number of people you've ever supervised or had in an organization in your career?
Not 3 million. Senator.
No, I don't expect that. Very few people have ever had that experience. But how many? It's a straight up question.
I think we had over 100 full-time staff at Concerned Vets for America, roughly, with thousands of volunteers.
So 100 people.
I was also a headquarters company commander, which would have been
that's fine.
a couple of hundred.
Couple.
Nothing remotely near the size of the Defense Department.
Right.
I would acknowledge that.
Actually,
Senator.
not remotely near even a medium-sized company in America, let alone a big company in America, especially a major corporation. And we're hiring you to be the CEO of one of the most complex, largest organizations in the world. We're the board of directors here. I don't know of any corporate board of directors that would hire a CEO for a major company if they came and said, you know, I supervised 100 people before. They'd ask you, well, what kind of experiences you had? We need innovation. Can you give me an experience or your actual experience of driving innovation in an organization. Give me an example of where you have done that.
Oh my goodness, Senator, absolutely. At Concerned Veterans for America, we created the Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force, a bipartisan task force that never been done before, to create policy, to drive policy change on Capitol Hill that organizations fought ferociously against. We got the VA Accountability Act passed and the Mission Act passed in a way that a nonprofit of our size, veterans organization, has never done. And that's testified in all the letters that we put forward to the committee, which are on the record.
I have limited time. Thank you for that. Give me an example of where you've driven down cost. I've heard the examples that Senator Blumenthal gave. The cost was a real problem for you in your 50-person organization that you actually raised a lot less than what you actually spent. Did you drive costs down if in a 50-person organization? Let me tell you, we've got to drive costs down dramatically in an organization of 3 million people and hundreds of billions of dollars. You don't have that experience that you can talk about. To me, this is, or acquisition reform. Acquisition reform, you bring that up. Have you had experience in acquisition reform?
I've written about and studied on acquisition reform.
Have you actually done it?
Because what we need in the hands of our warfighters better change, because we're not doing it well right now.
It better, and we need people who have experience actually doing that. You know, you talk about standards. Again, I'm going to go back to CEO of the most complex organization in the world. I don't think there's a board of directors in America that would hire you as a CEO with the kind of experience you have on your resume. You talk about standards. You talk about raising or low, that we have a problem of standards in the DOD, and we have to raise standards for the men and women who serve. Do you think that the way to raise the minimum standards of the people who serve us is to lower the standards for the Secretary of Defense, that we have someone who has never managed an organization more than 100 people is going to come in and manage this incredibly important organization and do it with a professionalism and has no experience that they can tell us that they have actually done that? I have real problems with that. This is not about other issues that are brought up. They're all very important. I'm just about trying to get things done, managing efficiently, and having the best people who have demonstrated that in a large organization. And I'm sorry, but I don't see that in your background. There are a lot of other things you can do very well. You're a capable person, but you have not convinced me that you're able to take on this tremendous responsibility with a complex organization and having little or no significant management experience.
Senator, I'm grateful to be hired by one of the most successful CEOs in American history, should I be confirmed.
Mr. Hegseth, it seems to me that you've supervised far more people than the average United States senator supervises typically. And
except for former governors, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mullen, I understand you are yielding back.
The Middle East is on edge, Russia's aggression is expanding, and China's flexing in the Pacific. When you've got enemies watching your every move, your leadership at the top better be rock solid. Not self-serving, not reckless, and definitely not unqualified. That's exactly why Senator Gary Peters came into this hearing ready to challenge not just the nominees, but the system itself. What happens when leadership becomes a performance instead of a responsibility? Peters wanted answers. He started with General Kane, a man who's being considered for chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And Peters didn't sugarcoat it. He wanted a firm commitment to the Constitution, to nonpartisan service, and to accountability. No party games, no culture war distractions, just pure mission-focused leadership. And to his credit, Kane stepped up. Calm, clear, committed. He emphasized servant leadership, not power, not status, just service. That's the kind of answer Americans want to hear from the person advising the president on every military move. But that wasn't the whole story, because the real storm hit when Peters turned to Secretary Hegseth. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Where Kane came across as grounded and professional, Hegseth walked into the room with a dark cloud already hanging over him. And Peters wasted no time. He called out Hegseth's qualifications, or lack of them, and questioned whether this nomination was about national security or just another political reward. You could feel the tension shift. Peters wasn't attacking for sound bites. He was demanding answers on behalf of every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who'd have to follow this man's decisions. Because this isn't just some high-level appointment. This is the person who sets policy for life and death decisions. And Peters brought receipts. He laid out the pattern: unqualified hires, firing experienced leaders without cause, launching leak investigations that looked more like loyalty tests than actual security enforcement. 5 senior advisors gone, either forced out or resigning under pressure. That's not leadership. That's a purge. And when leadership turns into a loyalty contest, everyone under them suffers. Then came the biggest red flag of all, the signal scandal. According to reports, Secretary Hegseth used an unclassified, commercially available messaging app during sensitive operations in Yemen. Not once, twice. And these weren't harmless chats. These allegedly included unauthorized individuals during active missions. Think about that. Active military operations in a hostile region. And the guy at the top is sharing details on an unsecured app. That's not just irresponsible. That's reckless. It's been said that this even led to personal security risks for other top defense officials, including Mark Esper and Mark Milley, who both reportedly had their protection details pulled during ongoing threats from Iran. And when Peters pressed him on it, Hegseth deflected, dodged, played the "it's still under review" card. But here's the thing. Accountability isn't just about what happens after an investigation. It's about how you lead during the storm. It's about whether the people under your command believe you'll take responsibility when the heat's on, or pass the blame. That's why Peters quoted Hegseth's own words from his nomination hearing. If you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they throw the book at you. That's true. Enlisted members get held to the highest standard. So why shouldn't their leaders be held to the same? Or higher? And this isn't just about a messaging app or a handful of bad decisions. This is about a dangerous pattern, a breakdown in leadership, a vacuum where integrity should be. Peters painted a clear picture. While America faces threats from every angle, the person who's supposed to lead the defense effort is more focused on control than competence. And if that's the person calling the shots, what does that mean for the people in uniform? Because at the end of the day, this isn't about politics. It's about consequences. Bad leadership doesn't just hurt reputations. It puts lives on the line. The troops aren't the ones making policy. They just follow orders. And when those orders come from someone who's more worried about optics than outcomes, mistakes get made. People get hurt. Families lose loved ones. It's that simple, and Peters wasn't alone in his concerns. Others on the committee echoed the same fears. If the person at the top of the Pentagon doesn't inspire trust, doesn't demonstrate character, doesn't own their mistakes, then what message does that send to the rest of the force? That rules only apply at the bottom? That accountability is just for show. That's a dangerous road. Because once accountability disappears at the top, it collapses everywhere. Trust gets broken. Discipline weakens. And the people we count on to defend this country start asking themselves if anyone's got their back. That's why this hearing mattered. That's why Senator Peters went in hard. Because when leadership becomes about personal gain, instead of public service, the entire chain of command crumbles. And here's the thing. Hegseth's refusal to commit to accountability didn't go unnoticed. Peters ended his time with a final line that landed like a hammer. I think your answer is clear. You are not going to be held accountable. And the silence that followed said it all. So, the question now isn't whether the scandal is real. It's whether leadership still means anything at the highest levels of power. And whether the people who serve this country, who risk everything, can still count on the people giving the orders. What do you think? Is this just another political drama? Or is this a sign that the system's failing the people it's supposed to protect? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see what happens next, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The next video dives into an even more explosive confrontation you won't want to miss.